Ian, are you good to go? Oh, it's not Ian. Ben.
Ben and Ian.
You look a lot like Ian from back here. We're good to go? All right, good. Well, welcome, everyone. We are the Owatonna School Board. This is Monday. It's November 27, 5:30. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Eric, our attendance.
We are missing Deborah.
Okay, well, hopefully she'll turn up. If you would all please rise, let's start our meeting with the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Chairs are so nice.
We will start tonight with the approval of our agenda. We'll entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor with an aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Item 4 tonight is mission moment. I'm going to turn things over to Mr. Elstad for some introductions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. It's my privilege tonight to lift up our OHS magnet students under our strategic direction of high-quality teaching and learning. At this point, I would like all of our OHS magnet members and Ms. Wagner to join us up front by the table, if you would. We're going to have a big crowd, and I'm going to give you fair warning, you are going to introduce yourself tonight to the board individually. So let me start by saying this, though, while they're coming up. In October, over 30 OHS magnet students participated in the Minnesota High School Press Association Conference, attending a keynote speaker from the Student Press Law Center, 3 sessions focused on student journalism skills and the awards ceremony. For content submitted in June, OHS Magnet earned the ranking of gold for publications from the Journalism Educators of Minnesota and second place in the Best of Show category. Also, gold medallion individual awards were presented to Jose Rosas and Sadie Fox. We congratulate our hardworking OHS Magnet staff on these awards and their consistent, high-quality, and responsible journalism. The Magnet staff has had the opportunity to meet and talk with the governor, Mr. Governor Tim Walz, First Lady Gwen Walz, and the Minnesota Department of Education Commissioner Willie Jett this fall. They do a great job of sharing the stories of all that is happening in Owatonna High School with other students, staff, and the community, and I would also like to recognize their awesome advisor, Ms. Jess Wagner. So let's do this. If we can have you, this is going to be a little bit of a race here. Let's start with Sadie, and we'll kind of work this way. There's a microphone right there. If you would be so kind as to just go up and introduce yourself or say your name. And I'm going to do one thing before we get started, so I'm going to make the mic hot here. Those viewers at home will want to hear your name. So if you would just kind of march through and say your name. Sadie, if you start with us, please.
I'm Sadie Fox.
And I'm sorry, can you tell us what year you are as well? Sorry, Sadie.
Oh, and I'm a senior.
Great, thank you. Go ahead.
I'm Ethan Armstrong. I'm a senior.
I'm Ella Highfield, and I'm a senior. I'm Mariah Quare, and I'm a senior.
I'm Jackson DeGroot, and I'm a senior.
I'm Torrin Smith, and I'm a senior.
Oren Dowling, a senior. Angel Barajas, junior.
I'm Aurora, and I'm a junior.
Jan Omangi, senior.
I'm Jose Rosas. I'm a senior.
My name is Jace Russell, and I'm a senior.
I'm Romley Yusuf. I'm a junior.
Ikhlas Haji, junior.
I'm Joe Zeman, junior.
I'm Amanda Clubb. I'm a junior. I'm Joanna Haggerty, and junior.
I'm Jessica Wagner, and I've been an employee of the ISD 761 for 22 years.
I would like to congratulate OHS Magnet for their hard work and dedication. Through your journalism, you help all of us to inspire excellence for every learner. Thank you very much.
Please don't leave just yet. This is a board that loves asking questions. So maybe one or two of you would stick around and answer a few questions. I'm sure there are a few. Kay and Josh are paying especially close attention. We have some budding and aspiring journalism students here in front. All right, let me guess. Jolene has a question.
I've got two questions. First question is biggest surprise being on the magnet, and second question is favorite story to write thus far.
Jose, why don't you take that one? You had some good stories, right?
So, I'm Jose. I would say the best or like the most surprising part of Magnet is just seeing stuff come together through everyone, and it really feels like a family in there. Everyone's working toward the same thing, and everyone's helping each other out and growing as a writer, as a journalist, and eventually, like, maybe your goal isn't to pursue journalism, but just being in the class has created so many more opportunities for me and just helped me become not just a better writer, but a better person in general. And I would say another great thing about Magnet is the great support that Mrs. Wagner will always bring to you individually, because, like, truly she does just want to see each one of us achieve success, and it's just awesome to be around.
Anybody else?
So everybody, it sounded like it's a junior or senior. Is this a class that's available just to upperclassmen, or are there others that do this?
I think there's a few sophomores who are in it, but it's mainly juniors and seniors, yeah.
Okay.
How many of you guys are going to follow up with journalism down the road? Raise a hand. Make it easy for you.
Aurora, yeah.
2, 3.
Couple?
Awesome.
I think the writers behind you will be recruiting.
Yeah. Ethan, not your first visit with the school board, is it?
I don't think so.
Nope.
Remember how long ago it was the last time you appeared before school board?
A year ago, right?
And wasn't there a time when you were in elementary school?
Yes, there was a time.
All right, well, I remember. Well, this is fantastic. Cannot thank all of you enough. And we have two intrepid reporters sitting right behind you that would attest to the fact that journalism is one of those things that creates community, and it helps keep us honest, and it helps keep cities, communities informed. You're the lifeblood. You're the connection for a community, and so we're very happy to know that some of you have been bitten by the bug, the journalistic bug. So thank you ever so much for coming and joining us with us tonight. Item 5 tonight is public forum. Do we have any cards tonight for public forum? We do not. Okay. We will move on. Item 6, this is part of your packet. It's general information, the enrollment report. Do any of you have any questions for Mr. Elstad with regard to what appeared in the enrollment report? No red squares.
No red squares.
We will move on. Item 7, no action required, board forum. Okay, I'm reminding myself, we'll start with board forum and we'll move on to policy revisions. I got you. Okay. Start down here. Tim, do you have anything for board forum tonight?
No.
Blaine?
Nothing. I'll hold my comments on the policies.
Okay, I have nothing for board forum. Eric, do you?
Just after everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving break, winter's here.
Whatever. Elizabeth?
No. In case you haven't heard, the musical has been released. The high school will be doing Newsies. So that's pretty cool. Pretty popular musical, and I'm super happy we got our hands on it for this musical season.
Nice.
As presented in other meetings prior, all roads lead back to Rome. And so the vision and the direction is Rome, never less and never more.
Thank you all. Item 1 under this would be policy revisions. This is a first reading, and I guess as I went through it, I noticed that some of them appeared as though they had virtually nothing. It was merely a review, and others had a fair amount of redactions and changes. So there are 3 members of the policy committee that are here. Any questions for members of the policy committee with regard to what is being presented?
I did have some questions. I wasn't sure of the order of things. Just fire away. Okay. Okay. On let's see. On the harassment and violence policy, it's number 413. Under definition, definition is Roman numeral 3, letter D. Bring it up. There is letter D, number 6, and there's a paragraph that's crossed out, and it has to do with the definition of sexual orientation. And then there's a replacement paragraph. And there's a sentence in number 6 in that definition that I was hoping to leave in our new definition. And the statement, okay, I'm not having it here, but I wrote it down. The statement that was removed that I would like to leave says, sexual orientation does not include a physical or sexual attachment to children by an adult. And it would make sense to me that we would want to keep that statement.
I think it's important, Elizabeth, the language is sexual orientation, not sexual attraction.
But in the number 6 where it's crossed out, that is the last sentence of that paragraph. So I would like to put that, keep it somewhere, whether it's in our new number 6 or somewhere else.
I think at this stage, what's helpful, probably for the policy committee, is just to take your comment and kind of debrief and discuss within the committee itself, and then we can bring back a proposal or maybe further explanation. I mean, I think instead of trying to slice and dice, unless, I don't know, Mr. Elstead or others have a comment that could clarify.
Well, the purpose of the
Elizabeth's
first reading
concern.
is for board members to respond or to, review and then provide feedback for the policy committee.
Okay, so we'll just take that back.
Okay.
So I'm hearing you say that last sentence you'd prefer somehow be incorporated in the new definition.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just so I have an understanding, what's the thought process behind that?
Yep. It basically it keeps the definition of what sexual orientation is between an adult, or so be it, a minor and a minor, versus allowing, possibly redefining that to say an adult attracted to a minor, and making that seem that that's okay.
Did that clarify your question?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
Yep, in my understanding. Yep, thank you.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. It's maybe further clarification. Arguably, it's helpful or not helpful, but we can take a look at that.
Yep. Okay.
You've got more.
Yep. So the other question was policy 506 on student discipline. Let's see. Oh, it was Roman numeral 11, letter B.
Page what, like 12? Or, I know.
Yeah, let's see. It was a long one.
Removal of students from class.
Yeah, so I was just surprised that it says parents will be notified after a student is removed from class 10 times. And I thought, one, as a parent, if my student is removed from class anytime because of bad behavior, I would want to know about it. 10 times just seems a bit excessive. So I don't know where that came from.
If I might, the 10 times is in reference, that's what we're statutorily required to do. But the other, our practice is in alignment with if a student is removed from class that the parents are notified. Now, there are some situations where a student might momentarily step out of class and then come back in, which may not be always reported unless it's something disciplinary that would require parent action. But this is just stating what is statutorily required, but by practice, we make a practice of communicating with parents when students have been removed every time.
Makes sense. Okay, sounds good. That one was simple. The other one was policy 601, School District Curriculum and Instruction Guide. And under Roman numeral 3, definition, and letter D. So I'll just read it first of all. The definition of culturally sustaining means integrating content and practices that infuse the culture and language of Black, Indigenous, and people of color, communities who have been and continue to be harmed and erased through the education system. And the part that concerns me is the second half where it says communities who have and continue to be harmed and erased through the education system. To me, that seems like more opinion and doesn't need to be in policy.
I believe, and again, we can do some research and confirm, but it's my understanding that these definitions are directly out of the state legislative changes that have occurred in the last legislative session. So I'm not sure that we're in a position to change legislative definitions, but we can certainly review that and confirm. I don't know, any other comments, folks, from the?
No, and this
Those who were
policy
in there?
specifically was heavy state statute, what they discussed the last year that's rolled out that we just hit and move it, and that's where we're at.
All the changes were, statute said this is what it is.
So we're incorporating what statute defined in these particular sections, all right?
Yes.
Yep, that's our understanding, but we'll confirm that. I mean, it's a fair question. So we'll confirm whether it's required by law, and if not, then we can have maybe further discussion about that.
None of the definitions were locally derived. They all came based from legislative action, so.
Okay. Ongoing in 601, and actually 603, there were several things that were crossed out, and I believe that was the literacy reading part of it. And so I just wanted to clarify, the crossed out sections were considered maybe obsolete. Is that because of the READ Act, or do we have another place in policy where it outlines these reading criteria, such like that?
Without knowing specifically what references you're making, I will tell you that I confirmed that exact thing before our meeting. Because I too was we've looked at these over a period of several meetings, and I was refreshing my memory, and I too had that reaction. And then I confirmed some of what is crossed out will appear in future policies, which you haven't seen yet. We're still working on it. If there's something specifically you want us to look at or confirm, we can do that. But that is my understanding as well.
I may, the READ Act is still being, because we're still in defining practice. The Department of Education hasn't yet defined some of the practices, and so they haven't given any other information to Minnesota School Board Association for their attorneys to craft policy based upon those changes, but it is in reference to the READ Act.
Okay. And then lastly, it was policy 604, with the legislation that removed the requirement for civics testing for graduation. And so that was just crossed out of the policy. But it did make me wonder if Owatonna High School still wants to have some type of civics requirement, even though it's not statute mandated. When and where we have that discussion.
There's a new course that has been, that will come through the District Curriculum Advisory Committee based upon new legislation, and so civics is being embedded into another course, and this has happened a few times where it gets flipped from 9th grade to 12th grade and back and forth, and now they flipped it again. So, but it'll be embedded in that course.
Is it a required or is it an elective?
Required.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, for clarification, is it still required at a state level, or are we just requiring it at the local level?
The new course will be required at the state level. That will embed the civics. Civics has been a required course. Now that's changing, so the new course, however it's named, will be required.
Got it, thank you.
I appreciate the specificity and saying policy number,
Yes.
Roman numeral section, so thank you for that.
All right, any other questions with regard to policy? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Item B would be administrative report, and the first one would be the world's best workforce. Thank you to Elizabeth for bringing to our attention that there was a component to the world's best workforce plan that asks us to review this, and I'm going to ask Mr. Elstead to make some introductions and take it from there.
So the language is actually rather ambiguous because it says it's contradictory language in some of the pieces where the guidance from the School Board Association as in the guidance coming from the department. Nonetheless, we are moving forward, and Julie has, I think, presented in your packet this evening our world's best workforce goals, and I'm actually going to have Julie come up to walk through those. But as she's coming up, I would preface it by saying these goals were discussed at the annual meeting for the school board back on November 13th, I believe it was, at our work session. So we're basically reiterating those same goals and action steps for you tonight. As part of this and moving this forward, we do need to submit an official report to the Minnesota Department of Education by December 15th. And so what we would be asking for you to consider this evening and/or moving to the December 11th board meeting would be approving this World's Best Workforce Plan to make sure that we have completed all of the tasks required to submit on the 15th of December. So, Julie, thanks.
Okay. Well, thank you. So what I handed out to you is just the 4 goals that are part of the world's best workforce. If you recall, there used to be 5, and when we presented in November, earlier in November, we talked about that they had pulled the Read Well by 3rd grade because that's going to become part of the READ Act, read at grade level at every grade. So we're still waiting for additional language on that, but as far as the world's best workforce goes, there are 4 of the goals, and I'll walk through if you have some questions. I know you guys saw this before, but so I'll just go through our 4 goals. And the first one is all students are ready for school. And our benchmark this last year, what our percent was that 58% of kindergarten students met the fall literacy benchmarks as measured by the Fastbridge Early Reading. We're hoping to shoot back up to 63%. That was a little bit of a drop from the year before. A couple of years ago, they had made a big emphasis on print concepts. That's simply that kids who enter school know how to hold a book, know that that it's not upside down, that we read from right or left to right, that type of thing. So there's a variety of things that we look at with this, but as part of the action steps, one of the biggest parts here would be that last one, the family and community outreach. And one of the things that we're trying to do is kind of re-establish the preschool committee across the community. And so Ann Michelson and Maggie Goldaddy are going to try to get that re-energized again. It was going in place, and then COVID happened, and it never really was reestablished from there. So that's one of the big steps that we're going to take with that. Relevant and responsive literacy instruction. As part of the READ Act, in the first part of the professional development that takes place, our preschool teachers are a part of that. And there's actually only one program that is approved for preschool, and that is the LETTERS curriculum. We have 3 different options for all of the other grade levels, or at least K-3 right now. They're going to come out with some additional ones for 6-12. But as far as preschool goes, it's only the LETTERS program. It's much less intense at the preschool level. I think it's about 40 hours, where if we were to do that with our other teachers, it's about 160 hours of professional development. So that's a piece that they're doing. And then they have the social emotional readiness focus, and that is linked to kind of the profile of a kindergartner. So they look at the different things that they want our kindergartners to be able to do, how to get along with each other, how to treat one another, how they respond to things, how they respond to being told no, or that you have to, sit, or you have to be in a line, different things like that. So that's kind of the marker that they use for that. let me go back to here. So that's the first goal. The second goal has to do with closing the achievement gap. If you remember at our last meeting, Kenneth Griswold, who is the guru of data, all things data, went through this, and he had all kinds of different charts that we looked at. But really what we're looking for is to reduce the gap. And how that is compared here is all of our ethnic groups here, the Asian, Black, African American, Hispanic, Latino, 2 or more races in our free and reduced population is compared to the majority group, which in Owatonna is our white students. And so trying to close the gap of, and we remember, you saw the graphs. In general, we're kind of mirroring the same, but you notice that the gap hasn't been closing. It kind of, as we started to go up, both groups went up in most of these categories. But we haven't done a great job necessarily of closing the gap. So that's one of our goals here. As we look at some of our steps, we talk about culturally responsive practices in the classroom, being aware of who's in your classroom, what are their backgrounds, what might they bring to the table, to the classroom, whether it's vocabulary, experiences. We have co-teaching in place in a number of schools and a number of programs, some in our EL program, some in our special education programs. And then we employ success coaches, and I can tell you, having been at a few buildings that had success coaches, the importance of that role is, it cannot be, overstated. They play such a vital link to the school and the communities that they represent. And then hopefully increasing recruitment and enrollment in specialized courses. We think about AVID, right, a program that starts at the middle school and goes through the high school, making sure we're getting kids there that could be that first generation college student, but giving them also the skills that they need in order to be successful. Rising Scholars, it takes place at a couple of our elementary schools, advanced placement, things like that. So those are some of the things that we're working on there. Our third goal has to do with that career and college readiness. And we talked a little bit about trying to get back up to 85%. I think this last year we slipped down to 82-some% on that first goal, which is graduating students who have earned credit in courses that have college credit-bearing potential. Doesn't mean they all earned college credit, but they had potential to if they took the AP test, or if they did well in a concurrent or a PSEO class, or if they took the bilingual SEAL test, which means they show proficiency in 2 languages. And if they do, then it gets them college credits. And I think we had 12 or 13 students last year who earned that bilingual SEAL. So we're hoping to get to 85% there, which I think is actually a pretty high number of students who are taking advantage of advanced coursework. And the second goal there is the percentage of students in grades 10 through 12 who earn credit in advanced career and technical education courses or participated in internships or mentorships. We're hoping to increase that 3% from 58.5 up to 61.5%. I do think that probably is going to happen when you think of some of the opportunities that are happening at the high school right now. I think there are 3 sections of the CNA course, the firefighting course. Those would be examples of this, but then you think of all the work Brian Coleman is doing, getting students out into businesses for internships and mentorships. Yes?
Sorry, I don't recognize what's articulated as a course. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, so that's and right before I came here, I thought I should look up exactly what that means, because we have college in this school and we have concurrent. Jeff, do you know more specifics on that?
Articulated agreements are those that would provide some sort of certification. And so when they complete an articulated agreed upon course, they're getting the college credit and they're also getting some sort of certification. So one of the articulated agreement courses might be welding, where the students could get a welding certificate at the completion of that course. And typically, most of our articulated agreements go through Riverland Community College.
Okay.
Yeah. And most of them, again, are technical and career-based.
Right. So. Would the nursing course also be one of those?
Potentially, but because it's a degree that you can get, it's a degreed program, I think what they're hoping is that eventually that you would get your Associate of Arts degree, which would get you an LPN, a licensed practical nurse degree when you're finished, upon completion.
Thank you.
Good questions, Aaron. Some of the action steps here, those of you two who are at the high school are familiar with kind of that career and college planning. You start it actually in 8th grade when they come over to register. Students start kind of thinking about what are the courses that they want to take. I think it lines closely with the career pathways and course development, though. The work that they're doing there. I was at the high school a week and a half ago and saw kind of the map that they're creating of the different pathways and the different courses that fall underneath that, then the different degree or jobs that you can get within that. If you have a 4-year degree, if you have a 2-year degree, if you have a certificate. And Phil Wyken, as you know, is pretty artistic. And when we had our speaker this fall, Mark Perna, he had the tree, which was a fairly costly endeavor for us. And so Phil is creating it, which is actually probably better because it aligns to what we are doing more specifically. And they're adding Owatonna job opportunities on there as well. And then we talked a little bit about just the 21st century skills, which goes well beyond technology, but I think we're coming back to communication. How do you work together to collaborate and accomplish some things?
To clarify,
Yeah.
So to clarify, the structure of career pathways is also adjacent to Compass.
Yes.
So when Aaron and I were moving into the early portions of Compass, we were proposed the idea that that career pathways in Compass was necessarily going to orient towards a career cluster, a job description. Personally, as an observation, I haven't noticed any developments towards career clusters other than a standard that's been presented for grades. Do you know how that's developing?
It's interesting because my husband, who teaches at the high school, I think he has students this year who must have indicated an interest in the engineering science, category. And so I think they're particularly placed in his class because of his knowledge and guidance in that area. Did your Compass teachers stay the same? Like the people that you go to, did they remain the same for this year?
Yes.
They did, okay.
I didn't.
Yours did not, okay. And I don't know if that was aligned to the changes that were happening. It'd be great to have Mr. Kath here to answer a few of those questions that are specific to that. But I know that was part of the plan with it. And I believe that was what my husband said, that was a piece that happened, that he was given some students who were kind of in that career pathways area, since he is a science background. But maybe they're still developing some of that, and as new students come in to the high school and they start to choose a career pathway. All right, and then the last goal is the graduation rate. The goal this last year was 88%, and we kept it at 88%. We had dropped a little bit. We were at 87.4%. And then also hoping that none of our racial or ethnic groups are below 80%. And if you recall from our last presentation, we had our Hispanic Latino population was the only population that was below the 80%, hovering at about 70% this last year. So hoping to get that back up, and so that all of our students are successful in getting their high school diploma. Some of the things that are kind of aligned with that, I know the high school has, very similar to what the middle school does, an intervention block, the Compass days in the afternoon, where students can stay and get extra help, retake a test if they're ready for it, or get some extra, they missed a day and they need to go in and meet with a teacher or something like that. The whole design of the high school, a lot of that was around student engagement and giving them some collaboration spaces. How the classrooms were designed was different. If you look at the business classrooms, you have some where they have the tables all have their own screens so that they can work together, and other classrooms have a little bit different layout depending on what they were kind of looking for with that. And then, of course, the programs and the pathways to graduation, hoping that students find kind of their niche, or at least can find courses that are of interest to them that they may want to pursue post-high school.
If I might, Jace, to your point, Mr. Kath is actually going to be here on January 8th at the work session to present his annual Career Pathways update to the board, along with other high school items as well, because there is more going on at the high school than just Career Pathways. But if you would reserve that question or that comment, I think he would be able to better address kind of the career clustering piece and what the vision is and how we're moving toward that at the high school.
Thank you.
And I will let him know, too, that that's, a question that was raised and something that he should prepare for. Do you have any questions? Otherwise, I don't know if you are taking action on this tonight or at, another point, but this is kind of the plan as far as the 4 goals go.
Questions? Yeah, questions.
Actually, I have a question, Jenny. And I just want to let you know that I completely understand this is your first year in this role,
Yep.
and I respect everything that you've done in the district at this point. But one thing I noticed from the presentation last time was a lot of the action steps last year were the same as the action steps this year. And so just in terms of how are we moving forward? Because the action steps last year didn't get us the results that we really, I think, had hoped for. And so are we making progress towards those things? It's just taking longer, or do we need to come up with some different action steps?
Yeah, and I think it depends on which goal you're talking about. Where we had probably made the biggest change was in our reading, and then they took that one out. Because we actually we changed some of the action steps, and we added a different one in there because of some of the things that are coming our way that we know we're going to be implementing and looking at. Functional phonics, for instance, right? The PD that goes with that. And that was the one that went away. I did talk to Corey about that, especially these last two goals are very high school, based in there. And, the whole career pathways is still, it's a developing piece. They've only started working on it really toward getting it ready for the opening of the high school where they had some more of those opportunities. So I think some of it we kept that way. And I did sit down and actually meet with Corey and said, this is what we had last year. These are our goals. And he said, and we're still here. We're still working on a lot of these things. So as far as those go, and then I think if you go back to like the early childhood, getting the early childhood network going again, that's new. What was in place, but trying to decide that was something that was really important that they needed to do. So that's a piece, like I said, Ann and Maggie are working on. So I think some of the steps might look similar, probably some of the actions underneath might look a little bit different, and where that takes us hopefully will be a little different too. So I appreciate what you're saying. I think it's valid what you're talking about, but I think as I sat with Corey, how they're doing each of these things is a little bit different.
Okay, can I piggyback off of that?
Sure.
And so in terms of the early childhood and the preschool component,
Yep.
That's going to take 4 years essentially to figure out if it's working, right?
Well, if we're doing which part of the,
Like,
let me go back to that one.
So re-engaging
Oh,
our preschool community and the daycares and the centers, we're not going to know the outcome of that until those kids are in kindergarten, first, second, third grade, correct?
Right.
Okay.
And there are some pieces of this step that are interesting because there are a lot of it that's out of our control,
Yep.
right? The number of students who don't go through our preschool program. However, at the DCAC meeting last month, Maggie did a presentation on what they all do, and their outreach is pretty incredible. And like we designed some PD for MLK Day, that very specific to our preschool program, that they wanted to know about how can they incorporate STEM things with really young children. So Tom Maher is doing that. So they're doing quite a bit, but getting it out to everybody else, especially with some of the changes coming around phonics, our people will be trained in letters for the professional development, but not all of the other preschools will. So yeah, it's a communication process and it will take some time.
If I might, to address, Elizabeth, your question, while I believe the action steps are very generic in nature, all of those the subheadings within that are changing. When we delivered the operational plan to you in September, a lot of those pieces within here are embedded in our operational plan as a district, but then there are also building operational plans and goals that they're working on. And so what you're seeing is an overview for governance purposes versus the management of the operations of the district, which becomes much more minute and detailed. So, yeah.
And very similar to, like on the DCAC, the buildings are coming and presenting their goals. And we had the 4 elementaries, and while their goal was kind of the same, their action steps were all very different based upon their schools. What Matt is doing at Wilson looks a little bit different than what Libby is doing at Washington. Partly maybe because of resources, might be because of the population at the schools, might be because of what they saw as strengths within their student body and where they needed to beef some things up. And so within each school's goal-setting process, you would see, as Jeff said, a lot more of the detail. I don't know who reads these when they get to the state level, so we do kind of keep them a little bit broad, but that's why we bring in our schools like to the DCAC to hear what are the goals, what are the things they're doing individually at each site.
Any further questions? We are going to use this as the roadmap when we reach it in item 9, where we take action. So I just want to make sure that if there are any clarifying questions that you might have before we get to that point, now's a good time. Hearing none.
All right,
Julie,
thank you.
thank you. Item 2 tonight is guiding change, and that's a description for the necessity for our school district to take a look at the boundaries, the elementary school boundaries. I'm going to turn things over to Mr. Elstad for some further clarification of this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As was highlighted previously about when we are reviewing the attendance area development plan or options, it's important that the design team have some rules of engagement, if you will. And so this is a guiding change document that can be used in many different ways. We have reviewed this, and I want to clarify, and I know on your confidence monitor it's very small. I don't know if there's a way we could sort of make that bigger, if we could, for the board. But I wanted to clarify for you, there are 3 things that we're studying here. One of them is really, what is our current reality? I'm going to go through each of those items with you. So as our current reality, we have looked at, we believe right now there's some inequities in resource allocation. That's coming from our finance. Buildings just have very inequitable sort of resources that are provided for them based upon student populations. We have unbalanced socioeconomic populations in the district. Facility utilization. Some of our buildings are overflowing and using portables. Other buildings have classrooms that are now sitting empty. We have an early learning space need, I want to say problem, but issue that needs to be addressed by the board at some point. Reluctance by families to change schools, which happens to be the reality. It becomes very much, this is where my school is, this is why I moved to this area. Unfortunately, you may not have a lot of growth in numbers, but the way people move in a community might be changing that. You have imbalanced neighborhood growth, which is exactly what I just said. We have neighborhoods that are younger, that have more school-age children, and you have others that are maybe a little bit more of an aging population that would not have school-age children. I mentioned before, Lincoln Elementary is using portable classrooms. This was something back in 2015 when the bond was passed that was something that we wanted to move beyond, but we're back to using that because Lincoln Elementary is very, very full right now. And then lastly, for our current reality was increased need for center-based special education program space. We recognize that particularly the last 10 years, the needs of our students in the realm of special education have changed and are growing. And so we have to find ways for us to build center-based programs which best meet their needs with specialists and things that can accomplish that. I'll name those. Both we've seen the Discovery Program, which is for a Setting 3 program for some of our students with emotional and behavioral disabilities. And then we have our Stride Classroom, which is also a Setting 3 for students that might have global delays, including emotional and behavioral disabilities, but also could be on the autism spectrum, disabilities, and or cognitive disabilities as well. And so as those programs grow, the need for that center-based space grows, and we've noticed that particularly at Lincoln and at Washington. So that's what we believe is our best description of our current reality. The next one in the middle there, that middle column, is the not house. These are the things that are non-negotiable, we believe, as an administrative team, these are the things we really can't just negotiate. We cannot violate school board policy. We cannot violate state or federal law. Those should go without saying. We also want to avoid creating systems that require frequent movement of programs like Montessori, special education programs. We've moved Montessori 3 times in 7 years, and we want to try to avoid that. How do we make a plan moving forward that would help us keep those programs in buildings so that parents find some comfort that that's the space where we have those programs located? Imbalance in school size. If you look at the difference between Wilson Elementary and Lincoln Elementary, And you saw that in your enrollment numbers, we're 200 students different. And that's a big deal. We're still able to accomplish what we need to as far as what you have approved as sort of board range targets for class size, but that will become increasingly difficult. We want to also, we cannot ignore future growth in preparation for enrollment fluctuations. As was stated before, and I think it was in our enrollment report, we have outperformed the enrollment projection for the last 10 years. And so even though it looks like we might be losing some kids, and perhaps we will, I'm not the great Karnak. I don't know exactly how we might be able to tell that, but I will tell you that we have outperformed for 10 years, and right now our enrollment appears to be strong. But that could change. But we can't ignore any future growth. And then lastly would be significant transportation cost increases. We've seen those increases already, and we just simply as a district would make it untenable for us to continue to see those transportation costs rise astronomically. The what? So this would be the desired results from any option that we may present to you moving forward. We would like to achieve balanced enrollment. We would like to allow for growth at sites. We would like to allow for equitable facility utilization. Options should serve both the current and future needs of the district so that hopefully we don't have to continue doing this over and over again. Balanced specialized programming in space, which I referenced earlier. Shortest bus routes possible. Every person sitting here and in our community wants kids to ride bus for a short time, so that should go without saying, and if we can achieve that, that would be great. Furthermore, equitable access to opportunities across all schools so that where you live in our community doesn't decide what opportunities you're presented. They're the same at any of the 4 elementaries that you attend. And then lastly would be minimizing the disruption of boundary changes with clear communication about why these changes are needed and the benefits of aligning boundaries to students. And so again, none of these decisions are easy, but if we have some rules of engagement, if we have a way to describe this, it helps for us to, as a design team, to create options.
Would you expand on that item C, equitable facility utilization? Can you just offer a little bit more of an explanation what that means?
So it's kind of a way of saying we don't want to have classrooms sitting empty, like we don't want to have 3 or 4 classrooms sitting empty while we're using portables in another space. So we really want to make it equitable so that we're not busting at the seams at one of our elementaries and, classrooms empty at the other.
To clarify, and this question is particularly for the wider board, particularly Mr. Elstead. To letter F, we noticed that there's the line shortest bus routes possible. In prior meetings, we have discussed that there's a working relationship between the Owatonna School Board and the Owatonna Bus Company to present proposals for shorter bus routes across the district.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're always trying to achieve the shortest routes possible. In fact, the bus company spends a greater part of the summer really looking at where can we shave minutes off of everyone's bus route. Unfortunately, I think we still have kids that are a little over an hour bus ride. And when you change boundaries, what you're trying to avoid is someone sitting on a bus for longer than that. And so again, that would be one of our outcomes that we could avoid long bus rides.
Questions?
Jeff, can I just have a clarifying question? I think it goes without saying, but just to be clear, the boundary changes that we need to contemplate are primarily for the benefit of our elementary buildings.
That's correct.
It will have no meaningful impact beyond grade 5.
No impact beyond grade 5. I would say that there might be an impact with how we might accommodate the needs of early learning that continue to grow. Particularly in our voluntary pre-kindergarten program. We've seen, and I think Lori reported on the last meeting, we're starting to see that population of students grow because it goes to our vision. We want every single 3- and 4-year-old to have a quality preschool experience before they hit kindergarten. So yes.
Really preschool through grade 5 is what we're trying to fix.
Yeah. And preschool is still be a center-based program, but it could offer some unique opportunities to look at how we might offer early learning programming.
Mm-hmm.
If this is the rules of engagement, can you give us an overview on what's the roadmap look like? tell us about the timeline and what do you expect?
So we will be convening the design team, and the design team includes administrators, school principals, other people like our Mars coordinator, other people that are part of kind of gathering data and looking at where are all of our options. And then we take those options, any option that's out there, and really start to kind of put them against these three tests about are we addressing our current why? Have we violated any of our not hows? And furthermore, then, are we reaching closer to our desired outcome? So once we bring that through as a design team, then in January, we engage an input team, which then, so the options by the design team will be created that seem like they could be viable and have kind of met these tests, if you will. The input team will be comprised of parents and teachers. And then the parents and teachers are going to look at this and kind of think through. And again, they'll have these same sort of pieces that they're thinking about as well. And then they will provide input to the design team. So this process will ebb and flow for a while until we feel like, and I've got a date circled on my calendar, March 18th is when I'd really like to bring this to the board for your consideration. Because there are some implications with staffing that need to be addressed if we're having to move staff as a result of changing classrooms and so on. And we have made an effort with our teaching staff whenever we're moving them to try to get that done before April 1st because we want to just make sure that we're cognizant of the move and that it can change their professional choices as well. So.
And then I was wondering, when we do plan for growth, how much growth are we planning for?
That is the million-dollar question, Erin. I think there's a lot of unknowns right now. What I can tell you is Hazel Reinhardt has done, she's a state demographer, and she has done demographic studies for our school district, I think for about 30 years. And within that, she has made some predictions based upon a very reliable formula that she uses. I think we confound Hazel at times because we're still outperforming what her predictions are. We were supposed to be short by about 300 or 400 students right now, and we're sticking right at about 5,000 students. And so I've heard Hazel say before, you've been 5,000 students for the last 20 years. You're probably going to be around 5,000 students for the next 10 years at least. But there are some caveats to that. One of them be is if we were to have a major business either move in or move out of our community, we are very susceptible to having those market changes affect school district population for sure. I would like to stay positive and think that we're a growing community. In fact, I recently read that Owatonna is the 6th largest outstate community in the state. And we continue, I think, to grow. I think Southeast Minnesota is an economic engine. And I think we're seeing business growth here that could perhaps move us in the direction of maybe confounding those projections again and outperforming it.
Any further questions? All right, good update, thank you.
Thank you. And again, if I could, this is an item that you can think about, and this will be put on the agenda with the board chair's permission for the meeting on December 11th for your consideration of approval.
Yep.
Thank you.
Wanted tonight as an opportunity to present it and give enough daylight in between tonight and when we approve so that questions that might come up, you have a chance to bring them up. Okay, we'll move on. Item 8 tonight is the consent agenda. We are approving the minutes from October 23rd, November 13th, the disbursement, as well as the personnel report. Anybody have any reason that we would pull one of these out? Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion to accept.
I move that the board approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I'll turn things over to Eric for a roll call vote.
Elizabeth?
Aye.
Deborah?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Jolene?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
I myself is an aye. 7-0 pass.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. Item 9 would be the first of several other board items that need board action. The first is the resolution establishing polling places. This is an annual event. We approve it every year at this meeting. Mr. Elstad, anything to add with regard to that?
No, just wanted to state that there are no changes to the polling places. You can all recall historically, we did have to make one change to a polling place that would have accommodated now has been changed to Clinton Falls Town Hall.
Yep.
But again, this is part of a statutory requirement that by December 31st, we have to establish those polling places.
I think Eric's got this motion queued up and ready to go.
I move that the board approve the resolution establishing polling places and designating hours for school district elections not held on the day of a statewide election.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none, this is a roll call vote once again.
Yep. Elizabeth?
Aye.
Deborah?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Jolene?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
And I myself is an aye. 7-0 pass.
Motion carries as well. Item B, as it has been presented to us tonight, this would be the World's Best Workforce Plan. Again, this is the roadmap that has been presented, and we've had a chance to hear it both at our last meeting and in more detail here tonight. Would one of you please introduce this motion for us?
Move that the board approve the World's Best Workforce Plan as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this one? Hearing none. All in favor with an aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Item C would be gifts to the district. Mr. Elstad, if you would, please.
Yeah, we have a number of gifts tonight. There's one in particular I want to call to your attention because it's large. You'll notice that there's a gift tonight in the amount of $57,142.85 from the Thelma Rice Estate. I just wanted to make sure this comes to us from both in memory of Vernon Casper and Thelma Rice, longtime residents of our school district. And this actually is an installment of their entire gift to the district. The only stipulation they had is that it was given in memory and that it was stated that it was in memory of Vernon Casper and Thelma Rice. Last year, we used a very similar amount to help really bolster some of our career pathways pieces. So some of the programs that we have been so proud to talk about, their generous gift to the district helped us move those forward. And likewise, we're going to continue to use those gifts to drive career pathways and or other curricular needs within the district. Once again, just very thankful for and very grateful to honor both Mr. Casper and Ms. Rice.
Very nice. Any questions? Give a motion.
I move that the board approve the resolution of acceptance of gifts as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this? Eric, if you would, please.
Elizabeth?
Aye.
Deborah?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Jolene?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
I myself is an aye. 7-0 pass.
Motion carries. And the final thing tonight would be to adjourn. I will make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor with an aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Good meeting tonight, folks. Thank you very much.